What's good, YouTube? Sensational Sinceres here, and I'm back with another Tom Clancy's The Division Vendor Reset video. We're here for April 24th, 2020's Vendor Reset. So let's get right into this and see what we got good for this week. Okay, so for our first gear items, we're going to head over to Camp Hudson. Here, the weapons vendor has a police T821 with a gear score of 280. It has 20.50% crit hit chance, and the talents it has is vicious, fierce, and unforgiving. For our next gear item, we're going to head over to the base operations. Here, the Dark Zone gear vendor has a first wave Vector 45 ACP with a gear score of 263. It has 21% crit hit chance, and the talents it has is brutal, deadly, and talented. Also, here we got a prototype performance mod with 2% pulse crit hit chance. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. And here the weapons vendor has a black market T821 with a gear score of 270. It has 19% crit hit chance. And the talents this has is commanding, competent, and deadly. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. The gear vendor here has a prototype performance mod with 7% ballistic shield health. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. Head over to the advanced weaponry vendor, and here we got a surplus SVD with a gear score of 274. It has 163% headshot damage, and the talents this has is intense, adept, and discipline. Also, here we got a classic M60 with a gear score of 274. It has 20% damage to targets out of cover, and the talents this has is competent, brutal, and deadly. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. Here, the special equipment vendor has a pecan with a gear score of 278. It has 20% damage to targets out of cover, and the talents this has is deadly, vicious, and pecan. Also, here we got a Cassidy with a gear score of 265. It has 304% stagger, and the talents this has is fierce, swift, and boomstick. Also, here we got a converted USC with a gear score of 278. It has 20.50% crit hit chance, and the talents this has is brutal, unforgiving, and ambusher. Also, here we got an ACR with a gear score of 271. It has 18% enemy armor damage, and the talents this has is adept, fierce, and vicious. Also, here we got a Spec Ops mask with the talent enduring on there. It has a gear score of 269. The armor is 858. This roll for firearms 1,222. And the attributes this has is health on kill and damage to elites. Also, here we got a tactical vest with the talent reckless on there. It has a gear score of 270. The armor is 1,888. Its roll for firearms 1,209. And the attributes this has is enemy armor damage, exotic damage resilience, and increased kill XP. Also, here we got an operator pack with the talent inventive on there. It has a gear score of 270. The armor is 1,250. Its roll for electronics 1,153. And the attributes this has is skill power and bleed resistance. Also, here we got some operator gloves with the talent savaged on there. They have a gear score of 273. The armor is 929. Its roll for firearms 1,199. And the attributes this has is crit hit chance, skill haste, and enemy armor damage. Also, here we got a prototype performance mod with 4% sticky bomb damage. Also, here we got Omega rifle suppressor with 18% headshot damage, 4.50% optimal range, and 2% accuracy. Also, here we got a small grip red with 17% crit hit damage, 4.50% optimal range, and 4% reload speed. Also, here we got a C79 scope with 17% crit hit damage, 3% crit hit chance, and 2% accuracy. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. Head over to the special blueprints vendor, and here we got an electronic knee pad blueprint with a gear score of 256. We also got a stamina mask blueprint with a gear score of 256. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the cavern. Here the gear vendor has a Spec Ops mask with the talent Tenacious on there. It has a gear score of 274. The armor is 992. Its roll for electronics 1,129. And the attributes this has is all resistance and increased kill XP. And then also here, I'll mention this because I'm here. We got a prototype performance mod with 3.50% mobile cover damage resilience. For our next gear items, you want to head over to Kerman Station. Here the weapons vendor has an ACR with a gear score of 261. It has 20% enemy armor damage, and the talents this has is fierce, brutal, and commanding. For our next gear items, you want to head over to Camp Clinton. Here the special equipment vendor has a Liberator with a gear score of 270. It has 19% enemy armor damage, and the talents this has is accurate, competent, and determined. Also, here we got a Historian with a gear score of 270. It has 159% headshot damage, and the talents this has is deadly, destructive, and Historian repeats. Also, here we got a pecan if you like to run this weapon. This one has a gear score of 272. It has 21% damage to targets out of cover, And the talents this has is capable, deadly, and pecan. Also here we got an operator pack with the talent specialized on there. It has a gear score of 271. The armor is 1,230. Its roll for stamina 1,213. And the attributes this has is health and bleed resistance. Also here we got a heavy magazine spring with 11% magazine size, 4.50% reload speed, and 10.80% rate of fire. For our next gear items, we're still at Camp Clinton. Head over to the special blueprints vendor, and here we got a first wave PF45 blueprint with a gear score of 256. Also here we got some stamina gloves blueprint with a gear score of 256. And also here we got a compensator blueprint with a power level 34. Also here we got an MK4M5A2 scope with the power level 34. For our next gear items, you're going to head over to Wolf's Den. Here the weapons vendor has a Lova C with a gear score of 270. It has 18% enemy armor damage. And the roll on this isn't that good, but I figured I'd mention it. But it has responsive, talented, and intense. For our next gear items, you want to head over to Autumn's Hope. Here the gear vendor has a prototype performance mod with 6.50% Seeker Mine explosion radius. For our next gear items, you want to head over to Madison's Stand. Here the gear vendor has a prototype firearms mod with 188 firearms and 3% damage to elites. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the Firewall. Here the gear vendor has a prototype electronics mod with 253 electronics and 1% crit hit chance. For our next gear items, you want to head over to West 31st Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a prototype performance mod with 5% ballistic shield damage resilience. And then also here we got a heavy magazine spring with 11.50% magazine size, 4% crit hit damage, and 10% rate of fire. For our next gear items, you want to head over to West 34th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a gunslinger vest with the talent Vigorous on there. It has a gear score of 271. The armor is 1,920. Its roll for firearms 1,182. And the attributes this has is exotic damage resilience, skill haste, and ammo capacity. For our next gear items, you want to head over to West 42nd Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a Spec Ops pack with the talent Inventive on there. It has a gear score of 265. The armor is 1,160. Its roll for electronics 1,130. And the attributes this has is health and ammo capacity. For our next gear items, you want to head over to West 46th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a tactical AUG A3P with a gear score of 265. It has 20.50% crit hit chance. And the talents this has is deadly, vicious, and predatory. And then also here we got a prototype performance mod with 5% first aid ally heal. For our next gear items, you want to head over to West 53rd Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a PP19 with a gear score of 268. It has 21% crit hit chance, and the talents this has is Fierce, Unforgiving, and Hurry. For our next gear items, you want to head over to East 58th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a tactical mask with the talent Refreshed on there. It has a gear score of 278. The armor is 995. Its roll for stamina 1,250. And the attributes this has is enemy armor damage and disorienting resistance. Also here we got an operator vest with the talent Reckless on there. It has a gear score of 264. The armor is 1,818. Its roll for firearms 1,117. And the attributes this has is enemy armor damage, skill haste, and ammo capacity. Also here we got a tactical pack with the talent Specialized on there. It has a gear score of 265. The armor is 1,141. Its roll for stamina 1,255. And the attributes this has is crit damage and disorienting resistance. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the Park Ave checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone weapons vendor has a PP19 with a gear score of 282. It has 22.50% crit hit chance. And the talents this has is deadly, ferocious, and hurry. Also here we got a tactical ACR with a gear score of 262. It has 19% enemy armor damage. And the talents this has is meticulous, responsive, and destructive. For our next gear items, you want to head over to East 53rd Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a pro red dot sight with 17% crit hit damage, 5% optimal range, and 6% headshot damage. For our next gear items, you want to head over to East 46th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has an ACR with a gear score of 279. It has 21% enemy armor damage, and the talents this has is responsive, determined, and ferocious. For our next gear items, you want to head over to East 34th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a Super 90 with a gear score of 267. It has 315.50% stagger, and the talents this has is trained, fierce, and ferocious. Also here we got a Spec Ops pack with the talent Relentless on there. It has a gear score of 262. The armor is 1,170. Its roll for stamina 1,164. And the attributes this has is skill power and disrupt resistance. And also here we got a prototype performance mod with 5% ballistic shield damage resilience. For our next gear items, you're going to head over to East 31st Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a classic AK-47 with a gear score of 281. It has 22% enemy armor damage. And the talents this has is Prepared, Vicious, and Fierce. Also here we got a Spec Ops armor with the talent Vigorous on there. It has a gear score of 272. The armor is 1,973. It's rolled for stamina 1,123. And the attributes this has is health, enemy armor damage, and ammo capacity. Also here we got a prototype performance mod with 5% sticky bomb explosion radius. And also here we got an extended magazine with 112.50% magazine size, 3% crit hit chance, and 4% crit hit damage. For our next gear items, you want to head over to DZ2 Safe Room. Here the Dark Zone gear vendor has operator mask with the talent Tenacious on there. It has a gear score of 269. The armor is 927. It's rolled for firearms 1,123. And the attributes this has is crit hit chance and damage to elites. Also here we got a tactical vest with the talent Vigorous on there. It has a gear score of 268. The armor is 1,760. It's rolled for firearms 1,241. And the attributes this has is enemy armor damage, health on kill, and increased kill XP. For our next gear items, you want to head over to DZ3 Safe Room. Here the Dark Zone weapons vendor has a SOCOM Scar L with a gear score of 269. It has 20% enemy armor damage. And the talents this has is Focused, Brutal, and Vicious. And also here we got a First Wave M1A with a gear score of 268. It has 144% headshot damage. And the talents this has is Intense, Competent, and Vicious. For our next gear items, you want to head over to DZ4 Safe Room. Here the Dark Zone gear mod vendor has a prototype electronics mod with 256 electronics and 3,292 health. And then also here we got a max roll prototype performance mod with 6% first aid self-heal. For our next gear items, you want to head over to DZ8 Safe Room. Here the Dark Zone gear vendor has a tactical mask with the talent Tenacious on there. It has a gear score of 265. The armor is 906. It's rolled for electronics 1,143. And the attributes this has is enemy armor damage and burn resistance. Alright everybody, that's it for our Tom Clancy's The Division vendor reset video for April 24th, 2020's vendor reset. I hope everybody who tuned into it found them something that they needed. Thank everybody who's supporting the channel, dropping them likes and subbing to it. I really appreciate that. That's good looking out, y'all. And I will see y'all with the next one, everybody. Take care. Peace.